Hi, my name is Goldman. I'm the director and founder of Goldman & Associates. Our firm has a primary focus on family law issues here in Michigan. And today we're continuing our video series designed to educate and inform the public, so please subscribe to our channel. In family law, there is a big, huge panoply of different types of law within that broad category. Some lawyers call themselves divorce lawyers because they only handle divorces as a function, but family law is much more broad. Yeah, it handles divorces and marital issues, and there's custody involved, parenting time support, resolution of debts, division of assets, all of these things. And one of the things that is involved in family law and often comes up is domestic violence. You see, domestic violence becomes an important issue because sometimes when relationships break apart and there's an impending divorce, it may be typified by instances of domestic violence. And that will have an impact on several things. Now, if the parties are just married, they have no children, they got some assets, and then there's an incidence of domestic violence, well, it has a different impact than if there were children. But if you're only dividing up property and assets and all that, the presence of domestic violence, while it could impact property settlement to some degree, it probably won't be overly impactful in the divorce. It might result in some practical problems because there might be a no contact order that prevents the parties from trying to work things out and all that, at least in the beginning of that criminal domestic violence case. But ultimately, the impact on the overall case can be minimized and should be a relatively smaller impact. However, if you've got children, it's a different kind of thing because the court ultimately has to determine who should the kids go to, who gets the custody, how are we working out the parenting time, when will the children be with mom and when will they be with dad, and how will the court do that in a domestic violence situation when, number one, there may be a no contact order which doesn't allow these people to have anything to do with each other, and number two, does the court have to worry that such a violent person who beat up their husband, who beat up their wife, what will they do to the children if they lose their temper? And will that impact custody? Not only that, as a result of that discussion, as you know from prior videos, there's about a dozen factors that the court takes into account when determining custody because it looks at what's in the best interest of the minor child. One of those factors is the presence of domestic violence in the household. So domestic violence definitely is going to impact how the court analyzes the issue of custody and parenting time. And so if you've got a person who's convicted of domestic violence, he or she may have an uphill battle just in terms of trying to, defend against it. Here the criminal case is over, but now they find themselves on the defensive as the court tries to use it against them in the custody case. Now there are ways to handle it. Sometimes these cases are dismissed, and so it shouldn't impact the custody case. Sometimes they are not dismissed, but they are either taken under advisement. Sometimes a person can establish that, yes, I committed an act of domestic violence, but that's only because of the 3 prior acts of domestic violence that the other person did on them where the police were not called. In other words, there's a context to all of these things, and that context can be brought up in a custody case. But understand and hear it clearly. You're going to have a situation where you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to answer it. It's going to complicate the proceedings. So therefore, if there's a domestic violence conviction in the history of the parties, understand that that's going to have a bearing on the custody case that comes up in the future, assuming of course that the domestic violence is relatively recent in terms of the divorce. Something 10 years ago probably won't have the impact that something that occurred 3 months prior. If you have any questions about that, reach out and we'll be glad to help you out.